All right, good evening. We are live. We are live. We are live. It is a Tuesday evening. My name is Jamahl Kersey. I am the principal attorney at Kersey Law, which is a boutique criminal defense firm in San Diego, California. We're just rolling through 2023, kicking butt. And this evening, we're talking about, to be honest with you, what was one of the most random, unexpected headlines that I've seen in a while, and we're going to get into this. So we have Shawn Kemp, former NBA star, released from jail after a shooting, right? And interestingly enough, I kept seeing memes and posts about Shawn Kemp being a shooter, and the internet just doesn't waste any time when it comes to headlines. They're on it, and so I saw the Menace to Society poster, and I think they replaced O-Dog with Shawn Kemp as a shooter. Just craziness. Don't get in trouble and let the internet find out, because once the internet gets to it, it's over. It's a wrap. Um, but to be honest with you, Shawn Kemp has really been out of the limelight. I hadn't heard anything about Shawn Kemp as of late. I don't really follow the NBA like that these days, like I did back in the 90s. But when it comes to the where are they now stories, right? Being involved in an alleged drive-by shooting is not the information you want to be the update on you, right? What's been up with Shawn Kemp? What's up? We got the back block in the building. What's up, man? Um, when they're checking for you, where you been, you don't want the most recent news to be that you're involved in an alleged drive-by shooting. It's just not a good look, right? And for those of you who don't know, right, Shawn Kemp was a first round draft pick. He was drafted in the 1989 draft, and so shout out to 90s basketball. 90s basketball just hit different. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't really follow today's game like that. I have my individual players that I like to follow, but when it came to 90s basketball, it just seemed like there was, there were legends all over the floor at any time. You know what I mean? And Shawn Kemp had played 14 seasons, and most known for his work with the Seattle Supersonics, right? And here's a fun fact. My freshman year of high school, so me as a freshman at Oceanside High, I actually bought a pair of Shawn Kemp shoes. I think they were Reeboks, and get this. I wore them one day. I wore them one day and took them right back. I couldn't keep them. That the shoes were not the most attractive shoes on earth, but you know, Shawn Kemp was the man. He was the man, Rain Man that is. And how many of you remember playing at the arcade NBA Jam, right? NBA Jam, NBA Jam was the thing, man. That combination, Shawn Kemp, Gary Payton, you know what I mean? They that was a squad. That was a squad. Um, yeah, Jordan and Pippen. You had who else did you have? You had Ewing and Starks. It was just it was fun times, fun times. NBA Jam was the thing, man. And so in 1996, Shawn Kemp actually led the Seattle Supersonics to the finals. Right, they lost to Jordan's Bulls, who didn't. Right, if you played in the Jordan era, you just there was a lot of great players who don't have rings because of a man by the name of Michael Jordan. But I went to Seattle a few years back to go see Dave Chappelle. So I went to go see with my boy Nav and his sister. We went to Seattle, and I saw somebody walking around in a Sonics jersey, in the green and yellow joint. Those were some dope jerseys. You got there's some amazing NBA jerseys, and I'd say those Sonics jerseys absolutely were. Um, what up, BJ? BJ, one of my homies from high school. How you doing, man? I hope all is well, my brother. Um, Shout out to my man Dennis. Good to see you doing the live. Thank you so much. Sad topic. It is, but it's not because it looks like there's some solid defenses there. So might not be as bad as at least the headline looks, right? But yeah, so it is one of the biggest shames in sports that the Seattle Supersonics no longer exist. It is criminal that there no longer exists the Seattle Supersonics. But the other news, and so you actually can see from this headlines that this was the ribbon cutting for his Kemp's Cannabis. So this was actually opened in downtown Seattle in 2020. And so you always love to see entrepreneurship. You want to see these guys who gave up their, who gave their lives, gave their careers to us to entertain us. You want to see them doing good on the back end. We hear so many stories about NBA players, legends, just doing poorly financially. So many horror stories of people losing everything, investing into bad businesses, just being broke after just a few years from leaving the league. So it looks, I mean, he looks happy in the picture. And he actually opened another dispensary last month. So mad respect. Much respect to Shawn Kemp, and props to the entrepreneurship. But Shawn Kemp, from what I understand, I mean, he's just really kept a low profile. Again, I haven't really heard anything about Shawn Kemp lately. He's really been able to keep his names out of the headlines for all the wrong reasons until last week. Shawn Kemp is 53 years old, so he's no longer a young man, and he's past that age where folks tend to get into trouble, right? So that's what made this headline all the more random when you hear about a shooting and Shawn Kemp is 53 years old. This is the type of activity you might hear from someone who's in their 20s and their 30s, not someone in their 40s and 50s. But yeah, he was arrested last week on suspicion of being involved in a drive-by shooting outside of a mall in Tacoma, Washington. And so I'm sorry, that's just crazy to think about. Again, I mean, this news really caught me from left field, but officers had basically responded to a call. So generally when you have a shooting like this, there are going to be people freaked out. It's in a mall parking lot. People are going to call 911. Officers respond. This was in the afternoon, so it wasn't a lot of times you hear about drive-by shootings, or you hear about shootings and it's late at night, early in the morning when it's still dark out. I mean, this is just before 2 p.m. So right in the middle of the day, right? Last week. And so so if you're not familiar with the Tacoma area, it's about 30 minutes south of Seattle. All right. And so basically what had been reported is there was two different vehicles there. There's an altercation, shots are fired, right? And then by the time the police come around, one of the vehicles they had already taken off and fled. And I was actually looking to see if there was any video of the actual shooting. I wasn't able to see. I'm not sure if there's any floating around, but the one video that I did see had what appeared to be Shawn Kemp standing outside of a Panamera, kind of pointing, saying, "Hey, they went down that way." But basically once the officers arrived, they confiscated the firearm. Fortunately, nobody was hurt, because that could have taken, what otherwise, is an alarming situation in and of itself when you have a shooting. But if someone had ended up getting hurt, or even worse, died, that makes this a completely different situation from what it is, right? And so basically, Shawn Kemp had ended up getting booked, and he was booked the same day on Wednesday, and he was booked on suspicion of a felony drive-by shooting charge. And so, that's a pretty serious ordeal. From what I understand, he has no criminal history whatsoever. He didn't really seem like a street dude to me. I actually saw Willie D from oh man, Ghetto Boys. he had done a live, and he was talking about how Shawn Kemp used to cook Houston. He's a big Houston Rockets fan, and so they used to come through him and GP and cook Houston Rockets, right? But he said, Shawn Kemp is a laid back dude. This threw him off guard, just like it did to me. But this is the thing about how alarming headlines can be and clickbait. It's designed to get you to dig into the news story, but a lot of times the information provided can be misleading, and I think it really is in this situation, because it doesn't really sound like your drive-by shooting. When you think of drive-by shooting, we all know what a drive-by shooting is, but this doesn't really seem to be that, right? And interestingly enough, Shawn Kemp's lawyer already came out issuing in a statement, getting in front of it, basically saying, hey, Shawn Kemp had some personal items that were stolen from him, and this was earlier in the week. And so if you've ever had something stolen, I think from your vehicle in particular, it hurts, right? Let me know in the chat if you've ever had something stolen from a vehicle, and I feel like I've had at least 4 vehicle break-ins over the years, and it is the worst. I think the first one was actually I can't remember if it was 1 or 2, but one of them was I had this little 87 BMW 325i, right? They broke into my vehicle. I had an Alpine CD player, and they basically that vehicle had a little computer in the center console, and what they did, it looked like they took a hammer and just smashed the computer and pulled out the deck, and it's just one of those things where every time I got into that car, I was reminded, because it took a long time to get repaired, and every time I got in that car, I was reminded of these guys who just violated my vehicle, and there's just nothing you can do about it. You're never going to catch them. It's the worst. And in that same car, and again, I'm trying to figure out the timeline, but I had a CD book stolen back, there I go, dating myself there, back when we actually had, there was no streaming, and you had to have, all of your music collection in a CD book. And, definitely this joint right here, Iron Man was in there, the whole Wu collection, Nas, Biggie, Tupac, all of that. It was all in there. I had hundreds of CDs, and it got stolen, and that was hurtful. And interestingly enough, Pee Wee Mac, you're saying, hey, it's rough out here in Seattle. Meth user and homeless people are ruthless, and that's, to be honest with you, that's what happened to me. I really believe that some meth user, some crackhead just broke into my car, stole my CDs, probably traded my CD. Yeah, BJ, the CD Bible. Yeah, probably traded my CD Bible for a couple of rocks, right? And I'm like, man, I don't know. Like I was broke back then, so I didn't really have a lot of money, but I'd have given everything to get that book back. There was some CDs in there that really got me through some rough times. Music is the soundtrack of our lives that we used to carry around with us in these books. But anyhow, I think that sort of, and we know we'll come to find out that Shawn Kemp's phone was amongst the items that were stolen. But who knows what other things that he had in there that might have meant the world to him. You know what I mean? If you're in the chat, please show me some love, hit the like button. If you're not already subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would greatly appreciate it. But he had his iPhone in his bag, and that's how he found out where his stuff was, right? So and it's interesting because the lawyer says that his items were stolen earlier in the week. And so I'm not sure if it was that same day or earlier in the week, but interestingly enough, he was able to use Find My iPhone to find the location, which is kind of, I guess, lucky in the sense that a lot of times when people steal your stuff, if they have a phone, they're going to try and disactivate it or deactivate it as soon as possible. So you can't use Find My iPhone. So you can't find it, right? And I'm really curious. We got another another theft victim. You had your wallet stolen. Caught them 3 hours later buying stuff in the local mall. Oh man, they didn't waste any time on you. But what was it stolen? It wasn't stolen on your person, right? Was it just laying down somewhere? Update me a little bit, BJ. I need some more details. Um, so I'm curious, if somebody steals your stuff and you find out where the location is, are you gonna go pursue it? Hmm? That's I think that's an interesting question, right? If somebody steals your stuff and you have a tag on it, or you have Find My iPhone and you're able to find the location, are you gonna go back for it? Right? Because somebody is so brazen as to break into your property, whether that's your home, your car, a locker, wherever it is that they come across your property. Any confrontation, this apparently was a shootout. Shots were fired, so somebody definitely could have lost their life, right? So that's the risk that you're running whenever you decide to engage in such a situation. All right, the wallet was laying down. You and the cops caught him. All right. BJ getting his officer Garrow on, huh? Yeah, and so Shawn Kemp goes after his stuff. He sees the location and he's like, I'm gonna go get my stuff, right? So he approaches the vehicle where his stuff is at, and he ends up getting shot at, right? So this is one of those, adding insult to injury type situations. Not only am I gonna take your stuff, including your phone, including whatever other items he might have had in a bag, it just says personal items generally, but not only am I going to take your stuff, but if you try and get it back, I'm going to shoot at you. Right. And so Shawn Kemp ends up firing back in self-defense. At least that's the story that his lawyer has put out. And I'd like to think that the lawyer's not going to come out and knowingly put out a false statement. We have obligations. I know there's a lot of lawyer jokes out there. A lot of people will say a lawyer is a liar, and I I resent that, right? But no, we can't just knowingly put out a false statement. And so it's assumed that Shawn Kemp told his lawyer this was the story, and the lawyer put the story out. And he ultimately said that his actions were reasonable and legally justified. And if you get shot at, then you would be legally justified in shooting back. And I had mentioned during the last live, I mentioned the Kyle Rittenhouse um, shooting, right? And rightly or wrongly, wherever you stand, on either side of the political aisle, I know that was a very, politically charged and racially charged situation, but Kyle Rittenhouse was charged with murder. He had shot somebody, but he had indicated, "Hey, I felt like my life was in danger," you know, and so I acted in self defense. And the interesting thing, and I cite to that as an example, just because it was so in your face for so long, it dominated the news headlines. To say that the interesting thing is, even if you have a legal defense, right? Because ultimately he was found not guilty, right? He was found not guilty of murder. Um, but I can guarantee you that there were discussions between him and his lawyers and the DA to try and convince them to dismiss the case against Kyle, right? Because they're saying, hey, our client was acting in self-defense. And the DA was like, no, we're not buying it, and pushed it all the way to trial. So this develops a situation where sometimes it's difficult for a client to understand why, when they are acting in a legally justified way, why they still may have to go all the way to trial to clear their name. Like, why isn't this case just getting dismissed? And that can be difficult for a person to stomach. But it happens. Sometimes people do have to go all the way up to trial to clear their name. So, um, at the time of the incident, his name was not yet cleared because he ended up in custody, and that's what ended up making the news, right? So he was booked on the suspected drive-by, basically for recklessly discharging a firearm from a vehicle that, quote unquote, creates a substantial risk of death or serious injury to another person. So, that's the legal definition in this particular county in Washington for their drive-by shootings, and that's what he was booked on, right? And again, I think this does raise an interesting question about if you have something stolen, whether you should try and go back and retrieve your stuff, because you have a couple options, right? You have things stolen from you, and if right, if you know where the location is, do you go back and try and get your stuff? Do you just take the loss, or do you try and call the authorities? You try and call the police and try and get your stuff back, right? And whichever is the answer, it's always going to be a difficult situation, right? Because it's your stuff that you worked hard for, right? You work hard, you work 9 to 5, or you work graveyard, or some of us work 5 to 5, whatever you work. And you work hard for the things that that you save up to pay money for, and someone just takes them from you. It's one of the ultimate levels of disrespect, right? And you're like, I work hard for my stuff, how you just gonna take my stuff, right? And some of you, right, might be prepared to react physically, right? Just beat the brakes off of somebody for stealing your personal belongings, right? Remember, and if you watch the last live, we talked about acting with violence to a situation in which you feel disrespected, right? Because that's such a common theme when it comes to assault cases, when it comes to shootings, stabbings. In many of those situations, it's because a person felt like they were disrespected, right? And to steal from somebody is very disrespectful. But the thing is, you have to keep in mind is that you can't just run up on someone and beat them up because they stole your iPhone, or they stole your iPad, or your MacBook Pro. This is another one of those situations where you might feel justified personally because they took from you, and you get to teach them a lesson. And in the game of life, might it be justified? Perhaps, but legally it's not. If that were to happen, you go and beat somebody up because they stole something from you, and someone calls 911, catches you, and the police catch you in the act, or catch you after the fact, you are going to be facing assault charges. And you having been stolen from might provide some context for your actions, but it's not going to be a legal justification. And so that's these are the type of things that we want to continue to communicate in terms of providing information that people don't, always just readily know. And so the more information that we can get out there, and the more people know their rights, then then this channel is definitely serving its purpose. But realistically, I mean, for me, and I didn't know who stole from me, but I was saying that one of the options would be reaching out to authorities, right, reporting something stolen. And and you might be rolling your eyes at that, and if I heard somebody saying that, I probably would, because the reality is, if something gets stolen, chances are it's just not going to be recovered. It's not going to be recovered. The police aren't really going to be able to do anything, and that thing is just lost. I'm a criminal defense attorney, and so I typically would be representing the guy that stole your stuff, right? But we randomly will get calls from victims of crime. So sometimes I get calls from victims of domestic violence. We represent a lot of people in domestic violence cases, and when I say victim, I don't just mean oh, my boyfriend hit me, and I'm trying to get representation for him. It's just no, I'm completely against this person. I want to know like what my rights are. Can you help me? And we generally, I mean, we don't represent victims, but my point is, a lady had called saying that she had some items stolen, and just wanted some advice in terms of what to do. And I'm like, well, I can't really represent you. There's nothing that I can really do. All you can do is call the police. But unfortunately, I mean, I think it was a laptop. So unfortunately, that thing is probably lost. I hope you had like some kind of type of insurance or something, but the chances of the police finding your stolen laptop are pretty slim to none. And you talk to some police, and it's like, we really don't look that deeply into this. I mean, how are we going to find a stolen laptop, right? And she's like, well, can I get a lawyer to to press them to to search harder for my laptop? And my heart went out to her for the situation, because it's just really unfortunate to have your stuff stolen in that way. But the reality is there's not anything that you can do. You having a lawyer contact the police and trying to have them lean on this case, harder to look into this laptop. I mean, it's just not really going anywhere. And so yeah, a few years back, I was ready to go on vacation. I was supposed to go with my boys to Cuba. And I made it to Cuba. I got my little license plate, and this is actually, they have these on the corners. That's how they so instead of a street sign, you'll see that, and that's how you'll know what the street is. But right before we're supposed to take off for our trip, my car got stolen, or my car got broken into, and my passport got stolen. Right. And it's just like, man, like, why? I need this vacation, right? I've been grinding hard, and somebody just, stole a passport. Like, what are you gonna do with my passport? I take that back. There's a lot of things you can do with somebody's passport. We won't even go there. But I wouldn't have been able to get back my passport um in an expedited manner, unless I filed a police report. So I had to call them. So it's like, yeah, you're on hold for an hour, and then the cop is completely, actually it's just a dispatcher, and they're just completely disinterested. Um, you're letting them know what went on, and like, yeah, we'll have someone reach out to you, and it's like, why even bother? But I had to do it. But yeah, I mean, taking the loss in this situation, I mean, it hurts again to have your items stolen, but in terms of the most reasonable option, right? Because if I'm a lawyer and I'm giving advice, or offering an opinion on something, just taking into account the law and what could go wrong by going out and confronting someone in the way that Shawn Kemp did, I'd have to say that you just take the loss. And ideally, if we're talking about property that is seriously value, or has a high value, ideally you have um some sort of insurance on it. um Shout out to mommy and kids saying good evening, thank you so much, good evening, thanks for tuning in. um because the reality is, I mean, this is the most reasonable option, because it's like the cliche that they say, things can be replaced, but we can't, right? What if when Shawn Kemp went and ran up on these dudes, or I don't know if it was multiple people or just one, what if when he ran up on them, they actually hit him, right? What if one of those shots would have hit him, and Shawn Kemp lost his life over an iPhone and a couple of personal items? How tragic of a loss would that be? And but it happens. Those type of things happen. I mean, we just had I guess yeah, we just had the trial of XXX Tentacion. XXX Tentacion. That's a tongue twister. Yeah, where he got smoked over like 50 or $60,000, right? So, when it comes to a confrontation, it just is not worth it trying to, you know, meet aggression with somebody who has nothing to lose. The person who is prepared to, steal from you in that way, be armed, is, they have nothing to lose. And if you have something to lose, then I just can't see how that could possibly be worth it. So the interesting thing is, and would be a good question is whether, Shawn Kemp does he just normally roll around strapped, or did he happen to, did he grab his heat just in case there was some sort of confrontation? Because again, this is a relatively unique situation in which you are actually able to track down the person that you believe stole from you. And I think either way it could make sense. I'm not familiar with Washington gun laws and whether you can just roll around, with a firearm. I would probably tend to believe that you cannot, simply because it's not Texas, right? Because it's not Texas, not Tennessee, Mississippi. I would think probably up in Washington, the gun laws are quite more strict, right? But if he went and he was armed for that reason, then you already know going into it there's a possibility of something escalating in that way, right? So you already know you're walking into a dangerous situation. And again, I don't know what was in his bag. There are certain things that are priceless, and perhaps things that you would be willing to put your life on the line for. But I'm just glad that that he didn't lose his life. I'm glad that he didn't shoot somebody and then end up being booked on a murder charge. That certainly could have turned out to be a tragedy as well. But the interesting thing is, the Pierce County, so this is Pierce County where this took place. Pierce County prosecutor's office has indicated last week that they're not filing charges. All right. And so Shawn Kemp was released. So he was arrested on Wednesday. He was arrested on Wednesday and he was released on Thursday, so the next day. But it's not just an outright, okay, so he's done, he's in the clear, because the investigation is still pending. And so the Pierce County prosecutor's office was pretty clear in that they said that that charges could still be filed. And so this sometimes happens, when you have alleged criminal activity, the police are going to respond, right? So in a situation where cops get called, so someone calls 911, they respond to a situation, they're going to do their initial investigation, right? So they're going to interview witnesses, they're going to look at surrounding businesses for surveillance video, they're going to take pictures, they're going to shoot video. So they're going to do all of their initial investigation, and then all of that information, so they're going to end up writing reports based on the statements that they get. So if they took any witness statements, made any observations, they're taking notes in the field. You sometimes see the cops with their little notepads, so they're taking notes, and then those end up becoming a police report, right? And so the police reports and all that evidence end up getting turned over to the DA, and then there's going to be an issuing DA that's going to review the case. And generally the police they're going to make a recommendation. They'll say, hey, I believe, or I booked this person on suspicion of DUI, or of a drive-by shooting, of attempted murder, whatever the recommendation is. And a lot of times the DA will end up going with whatever the police's recommendation is. But sometimes they may not. They may go with different charges, they may go with a mix of some of what the police recommended and some of what they decide, or they may go with less. It just depends. But nonetheless, there are situations in which the police arrest somebody, right? But that doesn't exactly lead to criminal charges. So for somebody who is in custody, they would then have to go before a judge within a couple of days. But if the DA has not received the reports and made a decision, you know after those couple of days, the person gets released, right? You have a right to be released because you have a right to appear before a judge and be arraigned and find out formally what the charges are against you, or it's like, charge me or let me go, right? That's the situation. But there are times where the DA reviews such a case and then they say, hey, well, I need more information, right? I need more information. And they'll send it back to law enforcement for them to collect further information. Try and get me more video, try and find me more witnesses, dig into this. I need more information in order to make a decision to move forward or not, or reject the case. And so that's where sometimes people feel like, okay, well, because the DA didn't file charges, that they're in the clear, nothing's going to happen. No, I mean, that could be the case, and ideally that would be the case for somebody. But if they're seeking further information, there are plenty of cases in which a person is released from custody because no charges are filed, and then the police do that additional investigation, get it over to the DA, and then that leads to charges being filed. So realistically, in this situation, Shawn Kemp is not yet in the clear, because again, if the DA is presented with evidence that in which they believe that there's a crime that they can prove having been committed beyond a reasonable doubt, then they might file against him. You'd like to think Shawn Kemp's going to get some home cooking in the state of Washington. I mean, he's a legend. Can can you arrest Shawn Kemp or Gary Payton in the state of Washington? I would think that that should be against the law in of itself. But yeah, I mean, that's about it for this story. Essentially, again, he was arrested. There's all these headlines about him being arrested on suspicion of a drive-by shooting, but it appears, at least based on what the lawyer has said, again, like, I haven't seen any videos floating around in terms of the actual shootout. I'll continue to look, but it just appears that, based on what the lawyer said, he was acting in self-defense. And so, unless the DA, or excuse me, unless the detectives, the police, are able to find some information that indicates that perhaps he was not acting in self-defense, right? Because if there are, other videos, there could be, somebody who was standing there and watching the situation and recorded with their cell phone. That is such a huge way that the police are able to, and they can rule out suspects in that way as well. But that is a huge way that that the police are able to, put together the final pieces of their investigation, and that is by way of bystanders' cell phone footage. And so, if it's discovered that Shawn Kemp rolled up and there was no necessary, there wasn't a threat to his safety, if there's no reasonable position that he was in, danger of, in imminent danger of harm, and thereby not justified in shooting, then that very well could revert back to the drive-by shooting or assault with a deadly weapon, negligent discharging of a firearm, any of those offenses that fall under that umbrella. So that's going to be the main issue. I think at this point he's been released, and that's on some level an indication that that the prosecutor's office doesn't believe that there's something that they currently could prove beyond a reasonable doubt. But again, if things change to where they don't believe that Shawn Kemp was acting in self-defense, then that's where he could end up with some sort of assault charge. So I definitely hope for his sake, his family's sake, and everybody in his life. First and foremost, again, just glad everyone's okay, nobody was hurt. But you'd like to hope that if any additional information comes out, that it's backing what the lawyer has already said, which is that he's acting in self-defense. But that's something we'll see. So that's it. If anyone has any questions, I'll definitely hang out for a few minutes and answer any questions anyone might have. You definitely want to take advantage. Again, if you haven't already, please show me that love. Hit the like button. That definitely helps with the algorithm. We're constantly trying to grow. We're at 12,000 plus subscribers on the YouTube channel. So we're still small, but we're growing day by day. And so I definitely want to thank each and every one of you for your support. And again, so if you have questions about this particular case or even any other um, legal questions, like I said, I'll be here for a couple minutes longer, and then we'll get closed out. BJ, New Mexico. What's the story with New Mexico? Yeah, the other one I got to get to is this Michael Irvin situation. Ah, gotcha. New Mexico gun laws. I'd imagine they're along the line with Texas, right? Yeah, it makes sense. Um, yeah, I got to get to this Michael Irvin. Speaking of Texas, this Michael Irvin story. Um, just saw the video. That video in the Marriott. It's hard to see. It's hard to see um where there was the justification ultimately for them to kick him out in the way that they did. And that's $100 million lawsuit that he has filed, and someone might say, that's excessive, but is it really? Michael Irvin, I'm sure, makes a lot of money in endorsements, especially in the state of Texas. Just a legendary figure in Texas. Him, um, Troy Aikman, Emmett Smith. Right, Jay Novacek, all them guys. Just legends out in Texas. You're the face of a company, right? They have you as the face of a company doing promotions, all that kind of stuff. That money dries up when you have a big story behind you like that. The companies just can't afford to deal with the pushback from having a face of their company at the time, or a representative of their company, that's dealing and battling a sexual harassment situation. But does he have a history? Are we talking about Shawn Kemp or Michael Irvin? Um, I don't want to speak out of turn about Michael Irvin. There was something that happened a few years back. I believe his name was completely cleared from that. So yeah. So Michael Irvin, I believe there was an allegation some years ago, but ultimately his name was cleared. But in this situation, there's not there is no criminal charges. Doesn't appear that there's any sort of criminal investigation, but he has been definitely affected. I mean, that removed from the NFL network, removed from ESPN, the embarrassing situation of being removed from your hotel room. And on top of that, there were a couple of individuals there who had said, hey, nothing was wrong. We saw the interaction, and we didn't see anything that would have risen to the level of a sexual assault or sexual harassment or anything, just inappropriate. And so, yeah, we'll talk about that one. But I stand behind sexual assault victims. Again, obviously, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and so I'm in the position of sometimes defending those type of things. But definitely, I don't condone sexual assault. I don't condone rape. I don't condone sexual harassment, any of these type of things. Um, but when women, um, you know, make false allegations, and I don't know, like there's no audio, just going off of what I've heard so far, between those two individuals that witnessed this event, Michael Irvin himself. Um, when there's no evidence that this actually took place, but that's been reported, it really does take away from the women who are legitimate victims of sexual harassment, sexual assault. I just, and it ruins the person who gets accused. It ruins their life because now they always have that stain attached to them, that mark on their record, even if, even if they're completely cleared, it's always gonna be there. And a lot of times I'll look through comment sections and see, people saying, hey, there should be some sort of criminal action or something that a man could do if he is wrongly accused of, sexual assault, rape, sexual harassment, and it turns out that the alleged victim is lying. There should be some sort of pushback to those type of situations, which might make someone think twice about um launching such a harsh allegation against somebody. So um yeah, and then also Marriott just stonewalling Michael Irvin's lawyers, not giving up the video. uh I watched the press conference. They didn't want to give him up the video. When he did go, he rolled over to the maybe like a Marriott corporate office or the law firm's office, and they didn't allow him to take a copy of the video. They wouldn't allow him to record the video with his cell phone. He could not have any evidence of the video. So all he had was, he has to go back to his client to let him know what's going on, and basically tell Michael what was on the video because he couldn't take a copy of it. And that's despite the court ordering them to turn the video over. So just really frustrating situation for him. I can only imagine. But yeah, maybe we'll dig into that one. But that's going to be it for this one. It doesn't look like we have any questions. For those of you who rocked with me to the end, I definitely appreciate you. As I continue to try and grow this channel, we're doing the lives on Facebook, we're doing the lives on YouTube, and again, being over a decade into the practice of law, it's one of those things where I'll be 60 and still learning new stuff about the law, but I am I'm set in where I'm at, right? There's nothing real new under the sun. But this content creation game is still it's still brand new to me. So we're working out kinks, we're getting better, signs of improvement. I just want to thank you all for your support. I hope you all are doing well. If you have comments, you're welcome to inbox me on Facebook, inbox me on IG. You can leave me comments in the YouTube. Message me. You can give me a call if you have a question, you need legal advice. But just bear in mind, in the state of California is the only place that I'm licensed. So you got to keep that in mind. So 619-399-3366. Otherwise, you can Google Kersey Law. At the same time, when you Google Kersey Law, you'll see, all the 5-star reviews. We just got another one recently. So definitely proud of that. The team, like I said, we're doing wonderful things this year. And I gotta, we gotta get a photo shoot so you guys can see the rest of the team. You guys see me all the time, but Kersey Law is more than Jamahl Kersey, right? There's a whole team behind me that makes the magic happen, that helps to get these results that we're getting. But again, I really couldn't thank you guys enough for the support, for the love, for the recommendations. We're always actively seeking referrals. So if you know somebody that's in the jam, you're welcome to send them our way, and I can guarantee you they will be properly taken care of, respectfully, professionally, and without judgment. So with that said, I'm out. So have a lovely evening. We'll talk to you soon. Until next time, peace.